Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this hot, steamy day. We are excited to have Sadie join us. Sadie is a Green Corps member with the city of Rochester and has been working on them with collaborative and community-based stormwater management. And she was able to share some of her work with us last year, and so it will be wonderful to get an update on all the great things she's been doing this past year in her Green Corps term. And so this one's going to be focused on comprehensive planning, co-design, and climate resilience. So the prioritization of diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as collaboration and resilience in vision and value statements, is ubiquitous among both public and private institutions. Most of us as individuals and teams genuinely believe in the importance of these published commitments and their inclusion in project planning RFPs. But the transition from statements to reality can appear to be or turn into a gnarly black box. Sadie will crack open and peek into that box through the lens of one local comprehensive surface water management plan development process. Sadie is a versatile professional and avid volunteer with a penchant for learning and drive to empower communities with the access and tools they need to thrive. Sadie's meandering and non-traditional career path has served her in acquiring a bachelor's degree in geoscience, 2 master's degrees in public affairs and environmental science, and too many certifications to list. I do know one of them is the Smart Salting certification, though, so we'll go ahead and list that one. Her formal credentials, paired with 2 decades of even broader and work experience in local governments, universities, small businesses, and even smaller nonprofits, have afforded her a unique ability to navigate complex challenges and support her teams in comprehensive and often overwhelming endeavors. She thrives in cross-functional teams and prides herself on strong interpersonal skills that allow her to understand the multifaceted needs of diverse stakeholders, identify their opportunities for growth, and foster collaborative partnerships that build stronger communities. Sadie is nearing the end of her second term as a Green Corps member and is looking forward to continuing her work in preparing communities for climate change and challenging the systems that stifle equity and resilience. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Sadie so she can share her wonderful work with all of us. Thanks again for joining us, Sadie. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right, so I am putting this icebreaker up. Please enter into the chat. First, what's the highest temp you've experienced, or heat index, whichever way you want to do it, yet this summer? And then also, how are you staying cool? What are the things that you're doing? Do you have good AC at home? Is there a local pool? Splash pad? Shady trees? Wow, Kristen, 132. All right, Mel says 100. Carl says, whatever today will be. Yeah, yep, probably. And then ice packs from the freezer. Good one. I see staying inside, limiting activity. Yep, those are definitely things. Staying inside. Yeah, I pooped myself out last night a little bit. I was tabling at the county fair in the conservation building and just did not realize how hot I was until I was like sick to my stomach. 100 and humidity. Yes, wearing shorts and a t-shirt at home, Mark. Office has lots of AC. Ice in your water bottle. Yes. All right. Excellent. Thank you so much. Energy efficient fashion. Ground source heat pump. Oh, just showing everybody up. Stephanie says yesterday was rough. Several indoor air conditioned spots and some ice. Ooh, ice cream. I think that's actually a story that I heard on NPR. Yeah. And Lindsay, ooh, bike ride breeze. Excellent. So I want you all just to kind of keep this in mind, all the things that you were able to do, and kind of, I guess, ask yourself, what would you do if that cooling activity or mechanism wasn't available for some reason. If your power went out, if you couldn't go outside to a shady place or go ride your bike, if you couldn't have ice in your water bottle, what would you do if you didn't have those things? Do you have another source of cooling that's reliable? Is it affordable? Is it accessible? Would you be able to walk to it? Yeah, Kristen's nervous about the power grid this week. Me too. Okay, so thank you. I want you just to hold that in the back of your mind as we go through this. So as Brooke so kindly introduced, I'm Sadie and I spoke last year. Thank you so much for having me about collaborative and community-based stormwater management. And this year, as I promised, it is part 2, a little bit more on the comprehensive surface water management plan that we've been doing, which will, I'll show you, involve co-design and climate resilience work. So last time we left off with the phase 1 of the comprehensive surface water management plan. We talked about the different engagement activities that we did at the time that included community, teammate, and developer surveys. It also included a community advisory group, which we called like modeled after co-design, but it wasn't quite co-design because it was more about feedback. We'll get to it later. And then also this visual strategy mapping. And I just wanted to include the slide from last time again to remind you of all the work that went into that and what that kind of looked like and that mind map that happened. So where we left off, I told you phase 2 is coming up, which we would be building a website, holding community resilience, building workshop, citing or kind of developing a guide for a community resilience hub, and holding one more advisory group. So, as in the description, I talked about these words: resilience, collaboration, and diversity, equity, and inclusion being things that we as individuals all hold as priorities. We, when we talk to one another, we all know that these are important. But sometimes it can be difficult to define them. So I'd like to invite everyone, whether you think it's right or wrong, I'd love to see wrong answers too, of what you think the definition of at least 2 of these are. Resilience, collaboration, diversity, equity, inclusion. Stephanie says collaboration is working together to achieve shared goals. Thank you. Lindsay says collaboration is multi-directional communication. Working together, multi-directional. I like this. I like how they're all coming in pairs. So we've got resilience is being able to bounce back from upsets. Yeah, a bounce back, meaning there was a disturbance and then a recovery. The ability to regain normalcy after a disruptive event. Yeah. Collaboration is meaningful involvement of stakeholders. Equity is giving each person access to the same opportunities. This will involve different support for different people. Yeah. Diversity, appreciating many different viewpoints. Lindsay, I like that. You say viewpoints. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Please keep putting them in the chat if they come to mind. I will keep looking at them and reading. And equity is when everyone has access to the benefit or topic at hand, not equal access, but access in a way that works for them. Yes, thank you. I love these. So the first part of this phase 2 that I said we would talk about is the Comprehensive Surface Water Management Plan website. The landing page, the home page, looks like this. It is a beautiful website. Our team used ArcGIS story maps to be able to put this together. And I want to take a moment to make sure that I really thank them at least one more time. Having this website was something that I really pushed super hard. I kept reiterating how important it was. And then when it came time to make it, I had a sudden life event that kept me away for 2 weeks. And when I came back, this was all done. My team just knew exactly what to do. They got together, they made it beautiful, and it is a very comprehensive website. So very quickly, I want to show you within the website, a couple of the different elements within it is one, there's a whole other story map within it that goes over our watershed, and it's very user-friendly, like made for the public to be able to go through it. There are also details about the plan, and right now the website currently serves to be kind of information about the plan and how we are progressing through it, the elements of it, the who's involved, you know, everything that's going on. And then later when we're finished, we plan for it to be kind of like a living document website to continue on with this work, for it to be the spot, a hub for continued engagement and information about surface water. There's also this tab right now for get involved, which we'll get to, and then a number of different resources. Our team is phenomenal about including resources, and as many who have talked to me know, stormwater touches so many different areas, not only of government, but also just life. So tons and tons of additional resources. One element that I really wanted to point out and bring up as kind of that, like, you know, how do you offer all of these different ways for people to get involved, right? We know that inclusion and access are both really key in ensuring that we have diverse insights that come into us. So we wanted to make sure that we had an asynchronous way for people to engage in showing us things that they know, things that they've seen. In stormwater, you often, you'll get, you know, the calls and complaints from people about different issues, a lot of flooding and erosion. And we wanted to have those all in one spot because, as you'll see later, you know, we have a model, but models are just models. They need to be ground truth, and often our models don't know about something that's happening. And so we wanted to make sure that, you know, we're getting the real what's happening on the ground. So for this, we used ArcGIS Hub. It is, I think, a robust resource. It's got a little bit of a learning curve, and the user friendliness is a little clunky. So we didn't get a whole lot of engagement. Also, I wasn't around to do my huge rah of talking to everybody that I know and blasting them with text messages like, hey, please fill this out. Look, it's a thing, participate. And so we didn't get quite as much interaction from the public as we had hoped, but certainly the team and people who knew about this added elements that they knew of. And we're really hoping that this can be used in the future for future modeling and ground truthing and engagement with people, and give them a way to report those things that they're seeing rather than just be mad and stew about it. All right, so that's key elements of the website, and we'll put that on hold for now. But I want to make sure we move on and get to some of these others. The next one that I promised I would talk about is the Community Resilience Building Workshop. So in the chat, have you ever heard of or participated in a community resilience building workshop? And I know that there are even a couple of people in this meeting that participated in ours. Thank you. Stephanie, yes, with Rochester. Yes, but it wasn't specifically called that. Is it Leah? What was it called? Sounds like a good time. Rice Creek in Ramsey County, yes. Awesome. Kristen with Rochester, yes. Well, fantastic. I'm glad to hear that it's not totally new. Very cool. So if you haven't heard of it before, community resilience building workshops, a lot of this content is a contribution of the Nature Conservancy. So this is the website and the guide that we use to be able to develop what we put on. One major, I guess, diversion from what this guide recommends is the time element. The guide really recommends that you have either a 1-day session where it's like 8 hours altogether, or it's 2 days and you split it up into these bits. We went with the 2-day version. And I'm curious to know, those who did participate in another one, was it a 1-day or 2-day? And how did it go? And what day of the week did you do it? 8 hours is a long time to ask someone to hang out and do stuff that my brain would likely feel just by the end of the day. I really want to point out on here that not only do they have these workshop guides available for anyone to use, they are robust and comprehensive. It includes even your risk matrix that you can use within it and your FEMA local mitigation review checklist, along with surveys and worksheets, but also it comes in Spanish. So you do not have to take the time to translate anything, or at least Spanish. So within our community resilience building workshops, like I said, we did it in 2 days. The first one was in October, the second was in November. So ours had a couple of weeks in between them. We held them at the same place. They were each about 4 hours long. They each started with a little bit of an introduction to the comprehensive surface water management plan and why we were using community resilience building workshops. So those of you who don't know what they are, community resilience building workshops are an opportunity to bring together a whole bunch of those different people. Like I mentioned earlier, stormwater, surface water touches so many other departments, elements, agencies, interest areas. We actually in our surveys get a lot of comments that are more applicable to parks and forestry and recreation for them to handle. Within this, we had DOT, we had emergency managers, we had United Way, we had some council members, we had about every single department within the city of Rochester, so many more, Soil and Water Conservation District. It's, you know, everybody whose work touches this was a part of it. And I want to highlight that everybody whose work touches stormwater, emergency preparedness, flooding, that kind of thing, their work came to this. So within our first one, we had a phenomenal turnout. I think we had more than 40 people at our first workshop. These tables were packed. We went through, and within the first workshop, we really just asked people to tell us about issues. And that's one thing I kind of want to make sure that I mention in this, is that it was a little difficult for all of us at first to just focus on, okay, what's the issue? And like keep our scope narrow into these different areas of disaster or disturbances. So things like high wind, flooding, extreme heat, extreme cold, or ice storms. Trying to keep our mind in these little boxes and then keep them within like, okay, just issues with infrastructure, just issues with the environment, just social issues was really difficult. One, because everybody was super excited to be in that first meeting and their minds were racing. They're like, I want to make sure that everything I know comes out, because as we know, there's a lot of like institutional amnesia when a person moves to a different position. There's just so much insight that always stays in somebody's head. And so I felt a lot of energy, a lot of vibes in this meeting that people like wanted to get stuff out that they felt like hadn't really been heard in the way that it needed to in other spaces. And I'm really excited about that energy that came in. So anyways, one of the things that we kind of learned within this is that part of the reason that it was hard to keep within these narrow boxes is that the infrastructure touches the social, touches the environment. And so one, it was sometimes hard to try and separate them into these different categories just because they do touch one another. The second thing that was really hard was that most of us, our thinking process, especially since this is area that we work in, not only do we think of an issue, but we immediately start to think of, okay, what can I do? What's a solution? And sometimes those are like as quick as you can get it, you know, something that's like, oh, well, we could shift this one thing. And sometimes it's we don't have a huge overhead communication system between all of us, and we need one. And we wanted both of those kinds of ideas and answers. Within the second workshop, we really asked people to come back with those solutions to things. And then within it, kind of like I said, those quick, oh, just shift this over, and that can help at least for the time being. We wanted to be able to put kind of timelines and priorities with each of those, which again got a little tough. A lot of brain work going on into, okay, well, what do we mean by priority? Because flooding, any major road, emergency route is definitely going to be an issue. What about railroads? So it just takes a lot of time, and that's why it's really great to have everybody in the room together, and at each table, have people from different areas all in one, because that's where you're going to get those different insights. Somebody from United Way who does like public services is going to have a very different set of ideas in their mind about what's an issue and what's a priority versus someone who works for roads, right? And being able to have those discussions and mind meld at the same time, one, provides insight to everybody else at the table that also works with those areas. But then two, allows for kind of a back and forth to suss out those priorities. And that's really where the benefit of all those diverse viewpoints and insights really helps when they are at a table together, having a discussion among themselves, not from me, a facilitator, telling them what to do or give input. It's not just me to them, it's them to them and all crossways. So, community resilience building. The next one is Community Resilience Hub, and we used it with a co-design project. So in the chat, have you ever heard of a Community Resilience Hub? No, they were not consecutive days. They were a couple of weeks in between. We did that just because of people's availability. People said they wouldn't be able to make 2 days back to back together. You got a lot of stuff to do in 1 week. So we spaced them out. But personally, I kind of think if I were to do it again, I would do the 1 day and try and give people a little bit to like prep themselves if we're doing it again with people who work in that area. I'd be interested to know those who have done this also. Was yours a resilience building with professionals who work in that area, or was it with community members, or was it a mix? Lots of different ways you can do this. Okay, so I got to go back. So yes, no, sad face. Have not heard of resilience hubs. Many times on NPR. Yes, thank you, Carl. Plans for Minneapolis until Excel. Yes, that one in Minneapolis was very energy focused. How resilience and energy, how can it be reliable? How can it be sustainable? As we were talking about with the heat today, there's concern that maybe the grid will go out. Then what? What if you don't have your freezer for your ice? What if you don't have your air conditioning? What if lots of different things, right? Okay, and then a couple of you, yes, you've heard of it. Excellent. So rather than me babbling about it, there's a really excellent video that gives you a great introduction to one resilience hub. And it's about, I think it's 8 minutes long. I'm just going to play this for you. All right, I clicked the button to also share volume, but if you don't hear it right away, somebody like quick chat or pipe up.
Back in the day, when you came into a city, especially in sort of an emergency management space or resilience,
Stephanie?
The idea that you're told to just make plans with people, build kits, and then everybody will be fine. And I felt like that was really against where my heart is. And so I spent a lot of time listening to community members, talking with them, and basically hearing that they weren't going to go to these sites, these emergency shelters, that they were only showing up because there was an opportunity to connect with others in the community, not necessarily because they wanted to hear anything from the city. So sort of stopped doing the making plans and building kits, instead did more of a spending time together, getting to know each other, building relationships. And over that time, working with community members, we identified it is critical to have a space that's trusted in a community.
Shoot, sorry. I thought it would just stop my video, so you didn't see me. Okay, let me go back.
Back in the day, in the community, not necessarily because they wanted to hear anything from the city. So sort of stopped doing the making plans and building kits, instead did more of a spending time together, getting to know each other, building relationships. And over that time, working with community members, we identified it is critical to have a space that's trusted in a community that you would go to, or in a neighborhood, but it has to reflect the neighborhood's needs. And that's where the concept of resilience hubs essentially were born, because we want to make sure they serve the community all the time.
A resilience hub is a physical location in a neighborhood that is altered to serve a community year-round and in the event of a disruption and throughout recovery.
I invited Elder to visit the Cambridge Community Center Resilience Hub so he could see a hub in action and could use what he learned to support the development of resilience hubs with community members in Providence.
So I'm really excited for you to come and visit the Cambridge Community Center with me and to meet Ross and Miss G. They're awesome. It's a fantastic site, and I think it's going to be a really good opportunity for you to see a hub that's sort of in development, but also to give you some ideas for things that could happen in Providence.
What got me interested in working with the City of Cambridge and the Cambridge Community Center is the excellent foundation that already existed within the community and the desire from the community leaders and the community members to have their site turn into a resilience hub.
Been in this building approximately 55 years. I mean, if you did something wrong in here, your parents knew before you even got home, you know, so it was almost like it was just a little extension of your home, your family.
This is the type of place that sort of sucks you in. It makes you want to stick around. It's really authentic and genuine, the type of community that is already built here. This place is special. It's real. It's authentic.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey!
Pleasure, so good to see you.
This is Elder.
Elder, pleasure to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you, Ross.
This is Miss G.
Nice to meet you. I'm Neuman also. Nice to meet you. Excellent. I guess my question to anyone here is just, how do we define a community trusted site? Maybe if someone could share just like what this facility has done in the past and the history of this facility to understand what that trust is and how it's been built.
It's longevity. The doors have never closed. The fact that the generations in my family have been able to benefit from a safe environment, it's just, it gives me goosebumps when I talk about it, because I have never worried about, are they being mistreated? Are they being ignored? Are they not getting the kind of warmth and love that I felt as a kid? I know I'm getting emotional, but that's it. This is a safe place to be.
Even though COVID was obviously very difficult everywhere, it was in a way a very exciting time at the center, with great energy around the food pantry and just a reminder of that longevity and of the fortitude of the center in terms of the staff and people enrolled in the programs and their families, but in the coast in general, and just the cohesiveness of everyone around coming together. It was, you know, sad and satisfying to watch, but it just gives hope.
You mentioned like the climate is changing, folks are trying to adapt. What have been some of those changes, or how do you come across this model of a resilience hub and implementing that into this system?
Actually, with the Resilience Hub, we're looking at sort of 5 key components. So making sure the services and programs for the community are there all the time, year round. Obviously, this site is already checking that amazing box and building upon it and doing even more, and making sure that those services and programs continue for community members all the time. The other is then the communications component, and just making sure we're being really proactive in communicating, get to know each other, spend a lot of time together, have really amazing events and things like that, but also to make sure folks know what is here so that they can come and access it when necessary. The third is the building itself and the landscape around, and we've talked a lot about the retrofits for this site because it's an amazing old historic structure, but needs a little bit of love and care. The fourth is making sure we have power, and so the power systems, and a lot of times, unfortunately, folks really ignore all these other things just to do a power system project, and so we really emphasize that as just one of 5 components of a Resilience Hub. And then the last is the operations and maintenance, which I think is really critical because we forget we need people to keep these places up and running and being amazing and consistently having folks like Miss G who are like, I'm always here. You know I'm always here. I'm reliable.
When COVID first started, were you worried about the center at all?
No, I was worried about the kids. I didn't ever think the center was going to close, but I was worried about the kids and what was going to happen with them, how were they going to be serviced. And then families, if you're not working, then eventually stuff got put in place and we reopened for those kids who had to be on Zoom school, but the parents didn't want to leave them home. So they came here and we provided the computers, screens and everything where they could connect.
People are feeling that connected and love the others in the community that they're spending time with. They're going to come here, right? And for an event like that, absolutely. But then if something happens and they need somebody or they are looking for guidance, they're going to come here because they trust it.
So, Basha, why do you think it's important to invest in this Resilience Hub model?
There's so many needs in our most marginalized and disenfranchised communities. I mean, our Black, Indigenous, and people of color have been really intentionally left without resources, information, access to funds for so many decades. And so this is an opportunity to shift that story and to focus on self-determination, autonomy, shifting resources and capacity, and having the community lead rather than being led or told they can't have access. And I think that's the shift that has to happen in government all around. We need to come into a relationship with community and community-based partners. The more we sort of do the one and done, or we've checked a box and we're gonna leave, that creates more and more distrust. A lot of folks in government in different departments have the resources, the funds, the other ways to support sites like this. It's just flipping the script and realizing that it really needs to be government listening and taking guidance from community rather than the other way around.
So what is the first step if you're interested in creating a Resilience Hub? I would highly recommend going to resilience-hub.org and taking a look at the guidance document. The guidance document provides step-by-step instructions for how to start setting up a Resilience Hub in your community. I also would reach out to your community members and community-based partners to ensure that they actually want to set up a Resilience Hub and make sure that there's passion and desire for the project before getting started. You're also welcome to reach out to the Urban Sustainability Directors Network to get more information or to get involved.
Okay. Oop. I may have just deleted that slide. Anyways, okay. Everybody can still hear me, right? And see me? Excellent. So, oops. Those are resilience hubs. Some of the major things that you saw within there is that resilience hubs are meant to serve both during blue skies, so our everyday times when things are okay, we're not under stress, there's no emergency or crisis, as well as then during that crisis, that disruption, that emergency, and thirdly, in the recovery of that process. Another really important thing that is stressed in this video and why I really like it and want to show it is that they talked about the importance of a resilience hub being a trusted community space. It is, you know, owned, operated, like populated and used by that neighborhood. It serves that neighborhood. This is not, you know, a large fitness facility as well where everybody comes in. It's, you know, a small, modest area, serves a lot of different functions, has some staff who are just really passionate about being there. And as you heard from a couple of the people, they were there as kids. They are invested in it. And they knew, you know, even during the pandemic, that this place will never close because the neighborhood loves it. We love it. We need it. So during those blue sky times within here, this community center also was able to provide like a community garden, spaces to recreate, especially when it's hot out. And then also internet, Wi-Fi, things that, you know, you might not have at home, either because you just don't have that, or two, it's not fast enough, or three, it's not reliable. So having a space to come to where those things are reliable, you have a cool space, you can, you know, have a quiet room if you need to, that's important as well. So resilience hubs, like, what is it, 90% of the time are not dealing with an emergency. However, during that time of an emergency, I think everyone in here has probably heard a lot about some of the not great responses and recoveries that have happened during other crises, namely Hurricane Katrina. There is a phenomenal podcast, if you're interested, called Floodlines that goes over that whole thing. I really recommend it. So resilience hubs, I'll hold that, put a pin. And Lindsay, awesome. An article supplying restaurants with free solar panels in exchange for them to be open as climate. Yes, Lindsay, we should talk later. I had a great idea about cooling centers the other day and just regular stores and like how to incentivize private businesses for being open as a cooling center. All right, so my next question is, have you ever heard of co-design? And I think these first two are yes and yes. No. Okay, so you may have heard a different word for it. I think, oh, I don't remember who it is. Somebody maybe at the federal level is calling it co-production right now. Oh no, it's another U of M, which is funny because co-design term came from U of M. Thank you, Kristen, for the grants available to small communities that protect against climate change. Yes. So co-design, in a nutshell, is a way to start planning, or at least for us, it served as step 0 for, all right, we think community resilience hubs are important. Where do they need to be? What do they need to have? What could serve as one? Should it be built new? Are there existing places that could serve as one? You know, would they have the multifunctional spaces? Obviously, no place has all of those energy systems, like is being hopefully continued to be researched up in the Twin Cities area. And does it have space to function as these other blue sky, you know, kind of services that really make it a home? It's not just a, you know, in and out center. It's a place you want to be. So co-design really acknowledges that, as we kind of talked about earlier, those diverse perspectives are so critical. As I mentioned in phase 1, we got a lot of responses within our community survey, our teammate survey, and developer survey. And the people who responded to that kind of fall in a, I don't want to say narrow, but it's certainly not the entire, it's not representative of the entire community. That population that, is subscribed to the city newsletters, follows the city on social media, gets the emails for every time a survey comes out, and then participates in every survey. That's me, but it's not everybody, right? So we captured all of those, and those are really, really, really important viewpoints to capture. However, especially when we are talking about what kind of services are needed in times like right now, like we talked about as our icebreaker, it's hot out. What do you do to stay cool? I don't know if anybody here lives like in a metro area where you do really have issues with urban heat islands that are difficult to get outside of and walk away from. But even here in Winona, where I live, every single time we walk downtown in the summer, we are maybe a mile away from downtown. Winona's pretty small. It is significantly warmer down there. We notice it, just everybody who walks comments on it. Yes, yep, Kevin, those participants, they tend to fit a specific demographic. And so if anybody has experienced urban heat island, like for me, I can escape it. I can get away from it. It's not that big. I can walk away. But in some places like metro areas, especially where you have all those taller buildings that are also radiating that heat back, it can be difficult to get out of. And when your body is in stress day and night because you don't have proper cooling, that's how we find that heat is the biggest killer among natural hazards, disasters. Anyways, so co-design, we are trying to find all those voices that weren't in the participants of the surveys, right? We're trying to find everybody else who doesn't engage in that way, and especially make sure that we are gaining insights from people who don't have a car to be able to drive to the aquatic center or the splash pad. We want to make sure that we have some people who have low mobility. And so, just getting out in a storm is not really an option for them. We want to know, wanted to hear from people who have a medical condition that would be severely impacted by a stop in services of any kind, or if electricity went out. We wanted to know from those who English is not their first language, and we got some really great insights on that too. But so everybody else, wanted to make sure that we get a lot of different viewpoints within there. So the idea of co-design, like this graphic tries to put together, is that you bring in all of those people with the diverse perspectives, the smaller bubbles on the left. We hear their stories, their experiences, their perspectives on things. We ask them questions, and it's not the same things that are on a survey. Instead of it being a lot of questions, where a number is the metric of success, this is all about the quality of those conversations, the depth of those conversations. It isn't until you start to have those like one-on-one conversations with your neighbor that you really, really get to know them and understand them, and like you can think and anticipate maybe their needs or something. Those are the kind of deep conversations that we want to be able to have. So within co-design, we invite people with these perspectives that we haven't heard from before to come in, and we have 3 or 4 sessions with them, depending on your design. So you come in, you meet all together, you get to know one another, and you ask some of these questions about things like, what would you do if, your electricity went out? Do you have access to AC? What are some things that you do, during a snowstorm, or have you experienced a blizzard before? Just lots of questions about all the different hazards that a resilience hub might be able to offer services for. Then we ask them to go out into their community, talk to their family, their friends, their neighbors, their coworkers, and have those same kind of discussions, and then bring it back at our next time that we get back together. And then we debrief on that. We ask a couple deeper questions, maybe see if like, awesome, but there's still this like one gap that we don't have answers for, and then we decide on the questions there, send them back out, and they go have those conversations again, and then they come back and we all debrief together, and one more time asking some questions, going out, coming back. And then at the end, whatever it is that we as facilitators, which this time it was us at the city, put together, we want to bring to them, what we think we heard, our summary, our synthesis, our main points, our highlights, and then have a deep discussion about what's missing. Does this really capture, what you were saying? What are you concerned about? All of that. So that is how you go from these like little bubbles to then bringing everyone together and getting ideas. And we have not launched anything. It's not ready, but eventually get there. So the timeline with ours, the Resilience Hub, a need for one, was first identified with the Sustainability and Resiliency Work Plan that was conducted by our wonderful Lauren Jensen, our Sustainability Coordinator at the City of Rochester. Next, we kicked off our Surface Water Management Plan. Then in June of 21, the Sustainability and Resiliency Work Plan was completed and adopted as an internal work plan. Next, January of 22, super exciting, as somebody mentioned in the chat, the PCA offers a stormwater, wastewater, and climate resilience planning grant. So we really took advantage of that. And part of that money that we were awarded through that grant went towards some of that very technical kind of flooding modeling that we later need to ground truth. But a good portion went towards this co-design, because another part of co-design is making sure that you are compensating people for their time, because engagement costs everybody something. And those of us, whether it is a sacrifice for us to say, I'm going to leave work, it does not matter, I will take the consequences to be able to go participate. Some of us can do that, some of us cannot. So just making sure that people are compensated for their time, that they're able to get there, that it's accessible, more equitable, right? For people to be able to engage, offer them an opportunity to engage in a way that works for them. So we got grant funding to be able to do that. And that's where most of our funding went, is being able to compensate our community members for their time in participating. Then we held all of our co-design sessions. You will see there is a huge gap, a jump in time between when we were awarded in July of last year to starting in January. And that is like a whole other presentation and conversation that we could have on why inclusion is so hard sometimes, because like engagement fatigue is real, and if we keep asking the same people over and over, they're really going to start to feel like this is not authentic, this is tokenism. And also, if you're asking the same question that somebody else already asked them, that's going to set off like alarms in my head of like, I already answered this, why are you asking me again? So anyways, had to kind of face that and be real and accept and take responsibility for that, because even we within the city later, through looking through everybody else's documents, park sustainability, kind of learned we could have possibly like just gleaned some of these things from the other plans, maybe didn't have to go out and do our own and ask these same people again, because then they're wondering, is anything ever going to happen with this? Why do I keep putting my time in? Anyways, I digress. So big jump in that time. You really have to take the time to build trust. You have to tell people and prove to them that you're in it, that this is going to matter. So whole of the talk for that. Oh. Sorry, I don't know why I'm getting a authentication prompt before I can continue. All right. So these are our co-designers. We had the great opportunity to meet within a community center, our community education center in Northrop. It was a space that people trusted, and that was something that really came out of our sessions that we talked about a lot. This is during our very first meeting with everybody. We had great perspectives within this, and I can answer probably a lot of that in questions, but I see I'm running out of time. So we'll come back to the biggest lessons learned from this, but I want to point out quick that I had listed advisory group as the last thing that we would do to make sure that after our plan, we put together our goals and our vision, and we think we got all of this engagement and everything sorted out, and we listed it, and then again asked, wanted to ask people, you know, how does it look? What are we missing? We thought that would be done with an advisory group. And that did not happen. We really had to take the time to sit down and ask ourselves, why are we doing this again? We've been collecting and collecting and collecting and haven't really had the opportunity to show back like a really tangible kind of product that makes people have faith that this is going somewhere. It's not just written in a report that's going to be stashed away somewhere, because so far that's kind of what we've done. We've collected a lot of stuff, but there are no plans to go forward, right? So with this final advisory group, we talked about kind of the point that we're at. We've collected a ton from people through those community resilience building workshops, especially, you know, with everybody who these crises, these emergency situations touch their work as well. And we kind of feel like an advisory group is not the best way to gauge whether we got it and we're doing it right. So I want to show a couple other things that we did instead. Community resilience building. First, we had, we hummed and hawed about what to call this. We ended up calling it a stakeholder forum. This one was an invite only. So this is everybody who had engaged up to that point. This included the people who came to the community resilience building workshop. This included our co-designers from the Resilience Hub work. It included our earlier advisory group and just some other people who have participated in other ways, like our developer survey, our teammates, everything like that. This was like a poster bonanza. So many posters, so many things for them to walk through. This was just our room. Stephanie and I had this room where we had some models and then a lot of the, you know, engagement work that we had done and getting feedback on that. But the other room, the entire room is just wall to wall, posters, 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 posters. The second thing we did was then hold an open house. So it's not invite only. This one was open to everyone. And as you can see on this, as shown on the upper left, we have posters all along one side of these kind of drapes. The picture on the bottom, as well as on the right, is the opposite side of that. Again, poster, poster, poster. And then also on the upper right-hand image, it shows that there are another set of posters that are all up next to it. We really wanted to offer an opportunity for people to learn and engage in a number of different ways. We tried to bring in all of the awesome different little activities that we had for it to be more family friendly. We wanted to offer a lot of different opportunities to give feedback. So we had a digital survey. We had lots of questions laid out on the tables as shown in the upper right-hand corner. We asked questions for people to write it down, gave them space to sit down with a group. In the upper left, this is a really cute photo, I think, that is just showing kind of the work that was done earlier. So it, you know, included people coming together and providing feedback, and we promised we'll produce something, and this was the production, and they're seeing it later. So offered a lot of different ways to get feedback. However, not as well attended as we had hoped. So that kind of gave us pause when we thought about the community advisory group again. And now we're pivoting. Next up, we think what we really need to know in order to do this well, to wrap this up, to get the kind of feedback that we need, it's kind of going to be a long process. And the first two things we need to know to be able to continue connecting with the community and have more of those two-way conversations, those invested relationships, is one, find out how do you want to engage. We have a number of different opportunities already, but somebody else could have a phenomenal idea that I just haven't thought of yet. Extremely likely that that's the case. And then we also want to know how they want to be communicated with, because I'm sure everybody here has later heard about an opportunity that they're like, well, for cripes, I didn't hear about that one. Where was that? You know, we can't all be on every single social media platform. We can't all get so many emails, because eventually you just kind of like gloss over them and put them in the trash. You just cannot do it. So we wanted to know, like, what are the ways that you really hear about this? We only have 3 minutes left. So I just want to throw out that one of those ways to get people invested and to give them something back so they want to continue contributing, giving you their time, we held a number of these different events. On the left side that's shown and the top, through EarthFest, We Bike Rochester offered the opportunity for us to do a sustainability ride. And so we took a tour throughout the town and talked about all the different areas that have surface water management, talked about BMPs. Nobody knew what that was beforehand. Another kind of fun one was this on the right. This is the watershed game. I hope you've played it before. It's fairly nerdy. I haven't quite figured out like a more fun and attractive way to frame it to people. But I would like to say there is a gentleman in the upper right corner there who, after this game, immediately joined the board of Healthy Lake Winona and was like, this is not my wheelhouse at all. He's actually a pastor. He's like, but I care about this. I see this. And this game has shown me, and you all have shown me that I do have things to contribute. My voice does matter. I don't have to be an expert to be on the board of something, which is so true. And please tell all your neighbors that. And lastly, education. And I'm so excited to say that our new outreach and education coordinator her background is 20 plus years in elementary school, and she's already had phenomenal ideas. And we very much know that one way to motivate adults to do something is to get their kids to care about it. Because as we learned with recycling in the 90s, nothing motivates somebody to recycle more than their kids shaming them into doing it. So being able, had the great opportunity to work through Red Cross to do some programming with young kids from grades 1 to 7 on emergency preparedness and tornadoes. And up in the upper right that's shown is our opportunity to be able to participate in the Envirothon, something that's already existing. We didn't have to build it, we just joined it. So I'm at time, so sorry. And this is the end, so.
Well, thank you, Sadie. Yes, so it does look like we've got a raised hand. I think you were following along with the chat, so I don't think we've got any unanswered questions or comments in the chat at this point. But it does look like Linnea had your hand up. So anybody who would like to stick around and ask Sadie any questions, you are absolutely welcome to do that. I do have to end the recording here and then leave for another meeting at 10. So I just want to take a moment to thank you, Sadie, very much for sharing your wonderful work. It has been a pleasure having the opportunity to work with Sadie over these last 2 years. I know she didn't talk about much about the chloride work, but she's also been doing amazing work on that front as well. And so I wish you well if I don't get to see you before your term ends here shortly, but we were all very thankful for you sharing your work and what you've learned in the process. Has been very interesting. So thank you. I'm going to leave Katie's here. So feel free to unmute and ask Sadie your questions, everyone.
Yeah,